Good morning, Woodford Wildcats. I'm here to read the next chapter in Charlotte's Web. If you remember, it started off with a pig, a runt, which means it's the smallest pig of all the piglets born, and Fern's dad was going to go kill it. And Fern threw a fit. She wanted to keep that pig and did not want anything to happen to it. So she finally convinced her father that she should be able to keep it. He let her keep it, and she fed it with a baby bottle and took care of it. And then when it got too big, it had to move to her uncle, Homer Zuckerman's farm. And yesterday, while on the farm, Wilbur got out and ran all around the farm. So let's go ahead and read. This chapter is called Loneliness. The next day was rainy and dark. Rain fell on the roof of the barn and dripped steadily from the eaves. Rain fell into the barnyard and ran in crooked courses down into the lane where thistles and pigweed grew. Rain spattered against Mrs. Zuckerman's kitchen windows and came gushing out of the downspouts. Rain fell on the back of the sheep as they grazed in the meadow. When the sheep tired of standing in the rain, they walked slowly up the lane and into the fold. Rain upset Wilbur's plans. Wilbur had planned to go out this day and dig a new hole in his yard. He had other plans too. His plans for the day went something like this. Stop. Breakfast at 6:30. Skim milk, crusts, middlings, bits of donuts, wheat cakes with drops of maple syrup sticking to them, potato skins, leftover custard pudding with raisins, and bits of shredded wheat. Breakfast would be finished by 7. From 7 to 8, Wilbur planned to have a talk with Templeton, the rat who lived under the trough. Talking to Templeton was not the most interesting occupation in the world, but it was better than nothing. From 8 to 9, Wilbur planned on taking a nap outdoors in the sun. From 9 to 11, he planned to dig a hole or a trench and possibly find something good to eat buried in the dirt. From 11 to 12, he planned to stand still and watch flies on the boards, watch bees in the clover, and watch swallows in the air. Swallows are a type of bird. 12 o'clock, lunchtime. Middlings, warm water, apple parings, meat gravy, carrot scrapings, meat scrapings, stale hominy, and the wrapper off a package of cheese. Lunch would be over at 1. From 1 to 2, Wilbur planned on sleeping. From 2 to 3, he planned to scratch itchy places by rubbing against the fence. From 3 to 4, he planned to stand perfectly still and think what it was like to be alive and to wait for Fern. At 4 would come supper: skim milk, leftover sandwiches from Luvy's lunchbox, prune skins, a morsel of this, a bit of that, fried potatoes, marmalade drippings, a little more of this and a little more of that, and a piece of baked apple, and a scrap of upside-down cake. Wilbur had gone to sleep thinking about these plans. He woke up at 6 and saw the rain, and it seemed as though he couldn't bear it. I get everything all beautifully planned out, and it has to go and rain, he said. Do you guys ever feel like that? You get something planned out and it just doesn't work because of the weather? Or even right now, plans we have right now are all on hold. For a while, he stood gloomily indoors. Then he walked to the door and looked out. Drops of rain struck his face. His yard was cold and wet. His trough had an inch of rainwater in it, and Templeton was nowhere to be seen. "Are you out there, Templeton?" called Wilbur. There was no answer. Suddenly, Wilbur felt lonely and friendless. "One day, just like another," he groaned. "I'm very young. I have no real friends here in the barn. It's going to rain all morning and all afternoon. And Fern won't come in such bad weather. Oh, honestly," said Wilbur, and he began to cry for the second time in 2 days. At 6:30, Wilbur heard the banging of a pail. Luvy was standing outside in the rain, stirring up breakfast. "Come on, pig," said Luvy. Wilbur did not budge. Lurvy dumped the slop, scraped the pail, and walked away. He noticed that something was wrong with the pig. Wilbur didn't want his food. He wanted love. He wanted a friend, someone to play with him. He mentioned this to Goose, who was sitting quietly in the corner of the sheepfold. "Will you come over and play with me?" he asked. "Sorry, Sonny, sorry," said the goose. "I'm sitting on my eggs, 8 of them. Gotta keep 'em toasty warm. I have to stay right here. I'm flibberty-ibberty-gibbet. I do not play when there are eggs to hatch. I'm expecting goslings." What do we think a gosling might be? If she's sitting on eggs, I bet a gosling is a baby goose. "Well, I didn't think you were expecting woodpeckers," said Wilbur. Wilbur tried next, he tried one of the lambs. "Will you come play with me, please?" "Certainly not," said the lamb. "In the first place, I cannot even get into your pen, and I am not old enough to jump over the fence. And in second place, I am not interested in pigs. Pigs mean less than nothing to me." "What do you mean, less than nothing?" replied Wilbur. "I didn't think there was anything such as less than nothing. Nothing is absolutely the limit of nothingness. It's the lowest you can go. It's the end of the line. How can something be less than nothing? If there were something that was less than nothing, then nothing would be nothing. It would be something, even though it's very little bit of something. But it's not. It's nothing. Then nothing has nothing that is less than it is." That was all quite confusing, huh? "Oh, be quiet," said the lamb. "Go and play by yourself. I don't play with pigs." Do you think it was very kind of the lamb to say to Wilbur that pigs are less than nothing? How do you think that made Wilbur feel, especially on a rainy day like today, when he already feels lonely and friendless? Sadly, Wilbur laid down and listened to the rain. Soon he saw that the rat was climbing down the slanting board that he used as a stairwell. "Will you play with me, Templeton?" asked Wilbur. "Play?" said Templeton, twirling his whiskers. "Play? I hardly know the meaning of the word." "Well," said Wilbur, "it means to have fun, to frolic, to run, to skip, and to make merry." "I never do those things if I can avoid them," replied the rat sourly. "I prefer to spend my time eating, gnawing, spying, and hiding. I am glutton, but not a merrymaker." So what do you think a merrymaker is? If he's a glutton, not a merrymaker. Rats eat constantly. So glutton means that he just eats and eats and eats and eats and takes it to too much. So if he's a glutton but not a merrymaker, merry kind of sounds like happiness, right? Merry Christmas. So a merrymaker would be someone who plays and has fun. "Right now, I'm on my way to your trough to eat your breakfast since you haven't got sense enough to eat it yourself." And Templeton the Rat crept stealthily along the wall and disappeared into a private tunnel that he had dug between the door and the trough into Wilbur's yard. Templeton was a crafty rat, and he had things pretty much his own way. The tunnel was an example of his skill and cunning. The tunnel enabled him to get from the barn to his hiding place under the pig trough without coming out into the open. He had tunnels and runways all over Mr. Zuckerman's farm and could get from one place to another without being seen. Usually he slept during the daytime and was abroad only after dark. Why do you think he'd wait till dark to come out? Probably so he wouldn't be seen, right? Wilbur watched him disappear into the tunnel. In a moment, he saw the rat's sharp nose poke out from underneath the wooden trough. Cautiously, Templeton pulled himself over the edge of the trough. This was almost more than Wilbur could stand on this dreary, rainy day to see his breakfast being eaten by somebody else. He knew Templeton was getting soaked out there from the pouring rain, but even that didn't comfort him. Friendless, dejected, and hungry, he threw himself in the manure and sobbed. What's a synonym for sobbed? Cried, right? Sobbed means you're crying really hard. That's my new puppy. Late that afternoon, Lurvy went into Mr. Zuckerman's. I think there's something wrong with that pig of yours. He hasn't touched his food. Give him 2 spoonfuls of sulfur and a little molasses, said Mr. Zuckerman. Wilbur couldn't believe what was happening when Lurvy caught him and forced medicine down his throat. This was certainly the worst day of his life. He didn't know whether he could endure the awful loneliness anymore. Darkness settled over everything. Soon there was only shadows and noises of the sheep chewing their cuds, and occasionally the rattle of a cow chain up overhead. You can imagine Wilbur's surprise when out of the darkness came a small voice that he had never heard. It sounded rather thin but pleasant. Do you want a friend, Wilbur? It said. I'll be a friend to you. I've watched you all day, and I like you. But I can't see you, said Wilbur, jumping up to his feet. Where are you and who are you? I'm right up here, said the voice. Go to sleep. You'll see me in the morning. So there's Wilbur when he flopped into the manure and was sobbing. Who do we think the little friend is that's talking to Wilbur? We'll have to find out tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great day. I miss you all. Take care, friends.